Hello everyone, Mark Anson Audio here. So let's talk about DRM, or Digital Rights Management. If you don't know what that is, DRM is basically all your stuff like your serial numbers, your activation codes, your iLocks, pause for groaning noise, all the other stuff that companies put in place to basically stop piracy. So what's the big problem? Well, the problem with DRM is that it ultimately only ever punishes the legitimate consumer. If you download a cracked bit of software or a pirated bit of software, there is no DRM stuff, there is no activation codes, there's no challenge response, there's no iLocks, there's none of that. You just get the software. But when you pay for it, you have to do all this stuff. You have to make your accounts and all this sort of stuff. So it only ever hassles the legitimate consumer. So that's a bit of a problem. It becomes more of a problem in audio than many other things, or any other sort of professional stuff, like your video work or any professional thing where you have lots of different software from lots of different professional bodies. It's because more often than not, they all have their own different systems for DRM. So I use plugins from Isotope, IK Multimedia, Native Instruments. I used to use McDSP a whole bunch. And about 3 or 4 other companies, including Waves and a few others. They all have their own different systems for DRM. So this becomes a real pain because each one of them has their own sort of system. Like the Waves system is very possibly the most infuriating DRM I've ever used. They all have their own account numbers, their own passwords, their own methods of keeping track of serial numbers. Some of them have a limited number of activations. Some of them you can activate on more than one computer at a time. Some of them you can't. There's all these different systems in place. And these become a real problem, especially in the digital age, where we want better, more powerful software. So companies are making stuff that is more computer intensive, or in audio it tends to be more RAM intensive, as we get like huge sample libraries from like Contact and all that sort of stuff. So every few years, we're changing our computers. We're buying new computers, and then we have to install all this stuff again, and then we have to reactivate it all over again. And like the last time I reinstalled everything on my computer, it took me about 2 days. Like just I've sat next to my computer downloading stuff and reactivating it and trying to remember old passwords and all that sort of stuff. So DRM is very, very annoying. Right. So let's get one thing out of the way first. I do believe that talented companies that make amazing software deserve to get the money they deserve for their hard work. I firmly believe that the world is at its best when talented people who care about what they're doing and are passionate about it are getting paid to do what they want to do. That's where we get innovation. That's where we get exciting new products. I don't want 10,000 digital EQs that all sound exactly the same on the market. I want someone to release something that I've never seen before, and that is really special and really new, and is going to push audio forward. And the chances are the best way that that's going to happen is someone who loves audio and is very talented is getting paid well to do their work, and it isn't constrained by a lack of finances or whatnot. So DRM is there for a reason, I suppose. That's good, but it can be a huge pain in the arse. There's been many cases in the past where DRM has also failed to work. So there's a lot of companies who have done stuff like say, hey, we've released some new DRM, there's no way anyone's going to crack it, there's no way anyone's going to be able to pirate it, and then 4 or 5 hours later there's already a key generator available online. So that's another problem, is a lot of the times DRM doesn't really work. So companies are spending a lot of time and resources and money then trying to sort of implement all this DRM, and it's sometimes not even working anyway. So I recently bought Reaper, or I say recently, I think it was about a year ago now. Reaper is the best kind of DRM free, and that you download the version, there is only one version, and it just works. And when you install it, it says, hey, technically speaking, you're only supposed to use this for 60 days. Please pay for this after that. I paid for it after about 120 days because I didn't have the money at the time. And as soon as I had the money, I paid for it because Reaper deserved my money. And that's the only true way to combat piracy in this world is to make good stuff and hope the legitimate consumer bails you out. And I know that doesn't sound a great solution, but the alternative is spend a huge amount of money on DRM and try to moderate your DRM and update your DRM, and then just hope people then just don't crack it overnight. So it's like, what is the solution there? I think you just have to try and have faith in the legitimate consumer. Make great products first, and people like myself will make videos and talk about how great it is and how people should pay for it, and hopefully that will work. It seems to be working well for Reaper. They're going from strength to strength. So let's hope that keeps going. Right, so not all DRM is bad. So I use Steam, which is for games. If you don't play games on the PC, you might not have heard of Steam. But Steam is basically a huge kind of games library. You buy all your games through Steam and you load it up, and all your games are there, and you can download them and install them a million times if you want. So if there's something that's like 15 gigabytes, a game that's 15 gigabytes, you can just download it and then immediately uninstall it. And you could do that on repeat every day for the rest of your life. It'd be a very pointless way to spend your time, but you can do that. It doesn't hassle you, and there's no limited number of downloads, none of that stuff. Right, so that's super useful. I love Steam. It also provides other features that are really useful. It auto-updates stuff. There is things like the Steam Workshop where people in the community can add new features to stuff. They can tinker with things. They can even fix and patch things sometimes. That's really great. So Steam is a DRM that I actually like. It's also great if you have multiple machines. So when I lived in my old flat, I had like a small sort of, I don't even want to call it a studio. I had a computer with a Line 6 USB interface that I could plug my guitar into, and a MIDI keyboard. And I had all my studio stuff was in the spare room at my parents' house, about 5 or 6 miles down the road. So I was constantly going back and forth between my two studios. The biggest problem with that is if it had been a couple of months since I went back to my studio at my parents' house, a lot of the software would then need updated, and I need to do it all manually, and it was a massive pain. Especially if I'd maybe, on my little home sort of half studio, if I'd been using a certain version of something to record with or work with, then I went to the other studio, things wouldn't work anymore, and having to manually update things to make sure everything was working was a huge pain. When you've got something like Steam with auto updates, all I need is my account username and password for that one thing. I go back and forth, and it'll go, oh, hey, do you want to install this, and this? There's updates for this, and this. And it just does everything automatically. So that there is a DRM that is providing me more than what I had without it. Right? This is the bit of DRM which most companies forget about. It's like, if you're going to put these restrictions in place, is there a benefit to the consumer at any point? If you're only restricting the legitimate consumer, then that sucks. But if you're making the legitimate consumer's day easier and providing them more services, then we're talking. Okay. So about 4 or 5 years ago, I remember having a conversation with someone saying, God damn it, I wish all my audio stuff was on Steam. Like my DAWs, I was using at the time Pro Tools 9, I think I had Reason. I think I dabbled with Reaper a little bit. Hadn't paid for it by then. Had a bunch of different plugins, different soft synths, all this sort of different stuff. And I was getting to this point where I was reaching the end of my patience for all my different activation codes and trying to remember all this different stuff, then limited number of activations and all this sort of crap. And I was thinking, God damn it, I wish all this stuff was just on Steam. That all my audio stuff was on Steam, so I could move from computer to computer and it would just work. It would update itself and it would just work. Since then, some audio stuff has ended up on Reaper. I think, is it Cakewalk? I can't remember what they're called. They've got a bunch of stuff on there, and they've got a bunch of different plugins and whatnot. And that's kind of cool. But the thing that makes Steam work, for the most part, is about 99% of stuff to do with games that you care about is on Steam. And that's why it works. Because it means you just need that one place. You only need Steam, you need that one hub. So if there's a bunch of Cakewalk stuff on Steam for audio, that's kind of okay, but it doesn't necessarily work because you need all the other companies together to meet in this one place, to have everything in one unified place before it'll work, and work in a way that won't bug and annoy the consumer. That does get trickier once you start to get like small indie developed plugins, and there's a million like free VSTs and whatnot, or like very low price VSTs that like small indie developers make. It gets trickier because they would then need to be on Steam as well. But the idea and the philosophy is there, and I hope more comes of that. My dream for audio is to be able to go to a freshly installed machine, I've just put Windows on it or whatever, and I suddenly get a big list of all my audio stuff, and I can say, cool, I want to install this, and then I can go get a cup of tea and come back, and it's all just done, or maybe several cups of tea, but you get the idea. Okay, so what are some other alternative methods of paying for software? Well, Stephen Slate Digital, they've started doing a almost Netflix-style monthly subscription for plugins. I think it's like $25 a month or $300 for a year, just to get, I think it's pretty much everything that they have. So this is a cool idea and a cool alternative to paying for plugins. The problem is it's still kind of expensive. $300 for a year is, considering the cost of buying one plugin might look like a good thing, but the problem becomes what happens in a couple of years' time when maybe you fall upon financial hard times and you have to go, right, we need to strip back our monthly expenses. The first thing you're going to get rid of is some plugins, especially if you're like me and you're a semi-professional audio person. Like I work in a shop the rest of the time to pay my bills. Like I'll be cutting out a monthly subscription for audio plugins will be the first thing I do to strip back my bills. And that becomes a problem that then you have a bunch of old sessions that are filled with those plugins that you can't open up and work with anymore. Or if you do, you need to completely replace all the plugins and all that sort of stuff. That becomes an issue, and it becomes a bit of almost like a psychological problem there, that it sort of baits people into continuing the subscription. I think Stephen Slate seems like the coolest man in the world, and he would never want to manipulate people into paying for stuff. But I know what I'm like psychologically. It's like, oh man, I could stop the subscription, but they'll lose access to all these old sessions, or I won't be able to just jump right back into those old sessions anymore. There becomes an issue there. And I say Stephen Slate seems like the coolest man alive, but that is a legitimate issue which some people will face, and I'm sure people perhaps have already faced that issue, and that's a shame. So I say I like the idea of the alternative pricing model, but just it seems very high for something that you then don't have any ownership afterwards. You don't end up owning those plugins, and that seems like a dangerous course of action. I would potentially be open to the idea of maybe if you subscribe for X amount of time, then you can say choose 5 or 6 of the plugins to own permanently, or even if you have this thing for 3 years, you just get everything now. Almost like a paying up style system, but you get to use it while you pay it up, but kind of interest free idea. I think there's potential value there. So I say I want good producers, good manufacturers. That I want them to get paid. I so desperately want them to get paid so they can keep making more stuff. So I do want to pay people, and I want you guys to pay for good stuff as well. But I kind of want to think about what's the least sleazy way and the most accessible way to do that. Okay. So what else was I going to talk about? So different types of plugin format is another issue which I've run into a few times. So on here, my iLock, which I never use anymore because it's a piece of shit and I don't really know why I still have it, is a bunch of licenses for a bunch of different software for mainly RTAS plugins when I still use the old versions of Pro Tools. On there, the only thing I'm really worried about that's on there is my Mic DSP plugins. So I bought, I don't know if they still offer it. Mic DSP had a sort of starter bundle. It was like a project bundle or something that was designed for sort of students and whatnot. So I bought it when I was a student, and it was really cool. And it was sort of limited versions of like an EQ and a compressor. I think there was like a reverb and maybe a synth in there as well. But the one that I used all the time was the limiter, sort of the maximizer limiter thing. It was just so good for the work that I happen to be doing. I do a lot of sound effect work where I need things to be louder quickly, and I've got a lot of files that I just need to make sure aren't peaking here all over the place. I used it all the time. And what was really cool about that project bundle when I happened to buy it is they had an offer that when you got it, you got to choose one of those elements, and I chose the limiter in this case, to update to their full version. It was the ML4000, which is my single most used plugin ever. It's a multi-band limiter. Uh, Probably the like the most professional tool that I owned. I absolutely loved it. Just so powerful and in so many uses as well. So what's the problem? Well, I stopped using Pro Tools 9 because it was absolutely horrible, and I refused to pay £1 million to upgrade to Pro Tools 10 or 11, and I switched to Reaper, which uses VST as its plugin format as opposed to RTAS, which the old versions of Pro Tools used. Right, so McDSP do offer VST plugins. Great, but you have to pay a huge amount of money to cross-grade them all on an individual basis. That sucks. And guess what I did? As someone who works 3 days in a shop to pay his rent, I didn't pay for it. So I stopped using my DSP plugins about a year ago. I haven't used them. So my favorite plugin I've ever owned, I don't use anymore because I can't justify the cost to myself. I just don't have enough money to be able to do that. So the issue there is the psychological effect of paying for the same thing twice. So, and this is a perception issue. So, changing your plugin from one format to the other is hard work. You need to code it, you need to bug test it, all this sort of stuff. So that means on my DSP side, it costs them time and money to change that. But the perception to the end user is, wait a minute, I already own the ML4000. Why do I have to pay for it again? That's the perception, and that's the way I feel, and that's the way I can't bring myself to pay for it. And that's not even talking about all the other things like the EQ and the compressor and all the other cool stuff that was in there. That I'm just never going to see them again because I'm not going to pay for them another time. I don't have enough money to justify paying for the same algorithm and the same user interface again. I understand that it costs me DSP money, but like I can't justify it. So this is one of the very tricky things. Again, I want great companies to get paid for their work, but I don't want to pay them twice, especially, like this is sometimes why people pirate stuff. It's like, oh man, I already freaking paid for that. I'm not going to pay for it again. Random case in point. So a few years ago, I didn't know who Killswitch Engage were. I still only know one of their songs called End of Heartache. And I saw it in a YouTube video and it's like, man, that song's really good. So I went on Amazon Prime and or the Amazon thing, music store, and I bought the MP3 of it for like 99p or whatever it was. And I listened to it and it was a different version of the song. And it was a version I actually liked less than the YouTube one. So out of anger, I then basically set up my little Zoom recorder, this thing here, which has got some line inputs. And I basically recorded the YouTube video directly into that and then converted that to an MP3 file. So then I had the original version that I wanted. And it was so infuriating because I tried to do the right thing. I paid for the product and it wasn't even what I wanted. And I rage pirated. Now I'm going to coin that term. I rage pirated. And it's like, in cases like this, I say with my DSP stuff, I almost want to rage pirate the version because it's like, man, I've already damn paid for the thing. I'm not going to pay it's like $49 just to get my ML4000 back. I don't have that kind of money. And this is one of the things that the bigger companies, especially the ones that are providing software and bundles for like broadcast purposes and post-production purposes. So this is like your McDSP, your Waves, your Isotope, all these very, very big plugin manufacturers. I think they need to sort of bite the bullet and just kind of eat it and basically offer all their plugins that when you buy, say, hey, this compressor, the super compressor, whatever it's called, then you just get that in all formats. I think they need to eat that cost to help the consumer make the right decision and do the right thing. Because currently, I'm not going to recommend any McDSP plugins because I'm not using them anymore. And I'm not going to recommend something that I'm not using. So McDSP's system here is not serving me, and it's not serving them either. So it's like no one's winning out of this. And I miss my ML4000 so much. I miss it so much. But yeah, it's like you have to think, what is the perception to the consumer? How are you serving them? So there'll be lots of people who watch this who are in the same situation as me, that they don't have a huge amount of money. They're trying to do audio for money whenever they can. It's their passion that they're trying to turn into a job. There's so many people, so many students who are doing audio I was one of them myself, and then I taught at university for 3 years. So many people there that don't have a huge amount of money. They don't have, 24 channel SSL desks and like a rack full of 1176s. They're just people in their bedroom trying to make the best that they can. And if that's your market, you change your business model to serve that market, not kind of punish that market or make them feel excluded. You have to include that market, and that's hopefully what's going to benefit people in the long run. The biggest advantage of anything digital, especially if it's a plugin that the file size isn't very large, is you can sell it and distribute it like infinitely at very little extra cost for yourself. So take advantage of that. Think about how you can use that pricing model or potential pricing models around that to serve people. Because the more people have your software in their hands and on their computer, the more other people are going to see it. And if it's good, they will tell people about it. And that'll make you more money in a way that isn't skeezy and in a way that serves everyone involved. So this turned into a very long rant. DRM is infuriating for the most part. Find ways to serve your consumer, and they will find ways to make sure you get paid. Anyway, thank you for listening to this ridiculously long rant. My name has been Mark Anderson Audio. Please like the video or share it or whatever you do, and subscribe to the channel for more videos. Adios.